Welcome to episode 5 of Finalizing Your Default Template. The intent of this video is to create your own lab and make it signature to you. Today's course overview will be setting up and routing folders for sounds, and then importing the essential sounds into your default template, and then a few final touches at the end. Okay, we're going to do a bunch of admin work, so have patience. This may be a little boring. You're going to create a ton of folders, and this is really important because the reason we're doing this is we are creating locations for all of our sounds, and we're laying down a lot of groundwork so that in the future it's going to be a lot easier to produce. So I'm going to be operating off the desktop mainly. I know a lot of people don't like doing that. The folders that we create today, you can put them anywhere you want, but for tutorial sake and for visualization and stuff, I'm going to be working off the desktop. Now, before we get into folders, I really need to quickly explain the difference between a solid state drive and a hard drive. You don't have to do this, but it is a massive recommendation by me, throughout your music producing career, you're going to accumulate a lot of tools, sounds, and just a lot of data in general. And you need a place to store that data. You can store it on your computer if you wish. However, that's going to take up a ton of space, and it will slow down your CPU when you start to run out of space. So what I recommend is buying a solid state drive. This is just a very fancy USB drive that uses like computer chips and memory chips to store data. For instance, this is a 2 terabyte drive for $135. It's actually a really good deal. I use the 1 terabyte one, which is, why is this taking so long to load? $97. So for like $100, you get a 1 terabyte solid state drive. Your other option would be an external hard drive like this. And this one for 1 terabyte is $85. So it's a little bit cheaper. However, this has rotating parts in it. It has a little rotating arm that writes data on a disk, and this is prone to break. And I have had people who have stored a lot of important information on these kind of drives, and when that rotating arm breaks, you kind of just lose your data, and that's a nightmare to me. So for the extra $15-20, definitely get the solid state drive in my opinion. Also, this is a USB-C cable with a USB adapter, so data transfers a lot faster on this as opposed to whatever this is. I guess this is USB-C too, so yeah, I guess it's the same transfer rate, but I definitely recommend USB-C. Again, I recommend a solid state drive so that this is mine. This is my solid state drive here, and I clicked and dragged like all of my sample folders into here so they're not directly on my laptop. Good, now you know how to externally store data. So let's actually get into these folders and what they are. The first folder is going to be labeled workshops and training. So if I actually open up mine, this is what mine looks like. I have a thing called bass builder. It's where I just strictly go to build basses. My original template is in here. When I want to build effects, I have an effects builder, a Jekyll and Hyde reverse engineer, because he was one of my biggest still is one of my biggest inspirations. So I take his music and put it in here, and I try to reverse engineer stuff. So the concept of this folder is just to have a specific designated project file for a specific topic in mind. And it's just nice because you can keep refining them and keep evolving throughout those workshops and training evolutions. Your next folder is obviously your open projects. These are where your current projects that you're working on will be stored. Your finished projects, pretty self-explanatory. You're always going to store them there. Your music producing bin is going to just essentially be an etc. bin. So throughout your music producing career, you're going to be collecting paperwork, all sorts of like files, PDFs, and other random crap, and you're just going to store that in here. It's just a place to collect etc. stuff. And then the last two is going to be your DJ name with the word tools after it. This is going to be all of the custom tools that you build in Ableton, and maybe even some like effects and plugins or whatever that you may have. And then the next one is actually your sample library. So it's going to be your DJ name and then samples. You're going to create all 6 of these and store them either on your desktop or your external hard drive. Cool. Moving on, I'm going to remove this real quick. I don't want that there. Go away. All right. So how do we actually put these folders within Ableton? It's very simple. All you can do is just click and drag your samples folder into, oh my gosh, I dragged it into the wrong place. Okay, no, I didn't. You're going to click and drag that samples folder into your sidebar here underneath places. And as you can see, I'm highlighted on it, and there's no content in here because there's nothing in the folder. We can go into this folder on our desktop, right-click, new folder, and label it drums. And if I exit out of this, Ableton will recognize it if I refresh it. As you can see, that drums folder is now in here. We can also do this in the opposite direction. So let me quickly delete this real quick, refresh it. I have to delete this as well. Okay, so we're back in Ableton on the samples folder. As you can see, no content. If I right click in this gray area, I can add a new folder in here as well and label it drums. Now, if I open up the folder on my desktop, boom, it's right there. So that is ways to import folders and create folders within your Places library, okay? Now, I have a list of folder names that you're going to start creating within your samples folder. I also call it collectibles. I'm just going to quickly rename this for video's sake. So this is your samples folder. What you're going to do is your first folder is actually going to be called drums. You're going to open that up and you're going to have a subfolder in here called kicks. And then you're going to have another subfolder called claps. And you're going to go all the way down this list until you fill in all the subfolders for the drums. And you're going to repeat that process for the entire list. And then you're going to make one called build-ups, and then basses, subs, effects with all of these subfolders. Cool? So go ahead, pause the video, take your time to create this. If you wish to make them your own custom names, you can do that as well, but I just recommend kind of doing this as a start. Moving on. Okay, I apologize for the jump cut. I accidentally deleted the folder list for the tools folder, and here it is. I had to remake it. So within your tools folder, you're gonna have a fat racks folder, and EQs, reverb, custom effects, and just go down the list and make all of these folders within your tool ones. And then I will catch you after that. All right, fantastic. Hopefully you made all your folders. Are you loving Ableton yet? It's a lot of work in the beginning, I know. So I have to show you another thing before we can actually start importing a ton of sounds, and this is crucial to know so that you understand how file routing works. So we just did folder routing, but now there's a thing called file routing. So you're gonna have files within the folders, and Ableton follows a very specific pathway, and it's very finicky about it. So let me explain what that means. So if I open up the samples folder we made, and I go to drums and kicks, I put a drum loop, a little like drum loop, hat loop in this folder. And if I click and drag this into Ableton, you see that it just made a new file, this .asd. What this is it's a little information file for Ableton, and it's essentially storing information saying that, like, okay, this file landed on the 9th beat marker and it's at 129 beats per minute. If I change it to 140, it should update this to 140. It's just a way of Ableton storing information about the file location and type and speed next to the actual original file, okay? So that's what this is. Don't start deleting these. You're gonna have one of these for every single one of the files that you import into Ableton, okay? So keep those. Now, this is where you need to be careful. So Ableton is recognizing that this sample here in the arrangement view is coming from this folder on my desktop, and then it's coming from this drums folder, and then it's coming from this kicks folder, right? So the initial starting point, remember, is the desktop folder. If I click and drag this off the desktop into a new folder, and I exit out of Ableton, we'll go ahead and save this, and then I reopen that project file, it's not gonna be there. It's gonna say sample offline, okay? And the reason that it's gonna say sample offline is because Ableton doesn't know where that desktop folder went. It's clueless to it, okay? So when you start making these folders, you have to keep them in the same location. As you can see, it says sample offline. We can get it back by just clicking and dragging that folder into its original location. And if you give it a minute, boom, it will pop back. There is another way to have it recognize the new file location. I don't remember off the top of my head. That's probably something for a separate video, but you could also, excuse me, just ChatGPT it. So remember, the key takeaway here is that when you create these folders, keep them in one location and do not move them, because it is so painful when you create an amazing song, an amazing project, and you move one of these folders, and then you open up that project and it's like sample offline, sample offline, sample offline, and you're like, I'm screwed, okay? So that is file routing, very important to know. Moving on. we're going to go ahead and import one more folder here into our browser, and that's going to be our splice folder. So if you are on Mac and you go to your actual user page here, you're going to see a folder called splice. I believe if you're on PC, it's going to be like my computer or my user. Your splice folder should be here. If you've been buying a subscription and downloading files, they will all go into this folder. Your Serum presets and stuff that you get on Splice will be in here, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go straight to sounds and then your packs folder, okay? And as you can see, all of my Splice folders are in here, all of my Splice sounds. And what you're going to do is click and drag that packs folder into your sidebar. I'm not going to do this. How do I get rid of this? Because I don't want to do that. I already have it. And once you drag it in here, you can relabel it whatever you want. It's not going to change the name of the folder in like your actual computer. So you can go ahead and change this to Splice so that every time you get something from Splice, all of those folders, it will be in here. Fun fact, when you buy a sound from Splice, from like a sample pack, it will actually make a folder for you with that sample pack name with the sample in it, like so, okay? Are you ready? Now is the time. We got our energy drink here. You do not want to meet DOOG in person hopped up on caffeine. We have been building up so much until this moment. You're actually going to create your first drum loop. You're actually going to start producing something, and you're about to finish your default template so that we can actually get into the fun stuff. So, as you can see, I got Splice here. Hold on, I got to take a sip. Ooh. Maybe not ooh. This has a weird aftertaste. Sparkling Starfruit Pineapple Edition. The Celsius. Okay. Bear with me, I digress. We got Splice here, okay? This is the Splice application opened up on my other monitor. This is what it looks like when you open it up. This is the home page. You can go ahead and search sounds up here. We're gonna go ahead and search decap, D-E-C-A-P, drums that knock. Okay, so when you search that, you can see a bunch of samples just loaded up in here. They're just individual samples of the Splice library that you can listen to by clicking the play button. You can favorite them. You can download them here, buy them here. If you click the little, I believe it's called an italices, the 3 dots here, and you can add them to a collection or a playlist here on the left side. So that's a very quick breakdown of Splice. I'm gonna do a whole separate video explaining Splice. There's so much to go into here. But moving on, as you can see on the top header here, we're on samples. If we click presets, these are just a bunch of MIDI presets that you can load into Serum and other synthesizers and drum beat makers and stuff. And then the last option is packs. So if you want to search individual sample packs as a whole, this is the filter option for it. And the one that you want to get is this guy, Drums That Knock by Decap. These are hip hop drum samples. They're all super clean and great. Hurtbox uses these a lot and recommended them to me, so I'm going to recommend them to you. I'm a little cracked down on caffeine, so I'm going to be speaking quick. If you can't afford the entire pack, all you need, that's okay, because all you need today is 1 kick, 1 clap, and 2 hi-hats. That's all you need. So go ahead, find your favorite kick, clap, and hi-hats. I am not going to be using this pack today because it's going to be faster to just use my own personal samples. And once you have your samples either within your Splice folder or your customs folder, we're going to go ahead into Ableton and you're going to zoom in to the 17 here. Okay, you see how there's a 17 here? This is the 17th beat marker. And if I right click right below it, like so, you can see 2 options. Insert time signature. Never click on that. Just do add locator. If you insert time signature, it's going to change the BPM and the time signature of your track at that moment. And sometimes I've accidentally done that throughout projects and it just ruins everything. So just refrain from doing that. What you're going to do is add a locator. And as you can see, it's just made a number 1 here. And we can rename this drop, because traditionally most dubstep has a 16 bar build and then it drops right after that, okay? Another way to rename this is if you just click on that beat marker and do Command R, as you can see, we've highlighted it and you can rename it whatever you want. I highly encourage you to label this drop, okay? Now what we're gonna do is import our very first sample. So go to wherever your kick is at. I'm gonna go to my custom folder, find a kick, I like this guy. I'm gonna click and drag him onto that marker we made. Boom. And what I want to explain next is how to adjust grid size. This is important to know because it'll help you produce faster. This is more knowledge on learning how to drive your DAW car. So if we right click in the arrangement view, you can see how it says fixed grid down here. If I click 8 bars, every grid line, vertical grid line, is now 8 bars in length. This is how you change the length of the vertical grid. So for now, we're just gonna do a quarter note because most basic rhythm drums are in quarter notes. And as you can see, the kick is not exactly a quarter note in length. That's okay, but for my OCD organizational sake, what I like to do is click on the kick, so it's highlighted, hold shift, and click on that next quarter note line. So now I've highlighted an entire quarter note worth of space, and if I do Command J, I've consolidated that kick and it's extended the space to the next quarter note. I really enjoy doing that because I like all of my projects super nice, neat, and organized. You don't have to, but I do it. So if I click on this kick now, and it's highlighted, and I hold shift, and I click right below the 17.3 on this track line, I've highlighted half of a beat of space. And if I do Command D, I've duplicated that kick. And if I hold shift and click the first kick again, this is now an entire bar of space. And if I do Command D again, this is what? 2 bars. If I hold shift and highlight the 2 bars and do Command D, this is now 4 bars, okay? Now that we have 4 bars of kicks, we're gonna zoom in right here on the 21 right at the end, and we're gonna add a new locator, and we're just gonna put a period. And that's because that's gonna be the halfway point of this entire first phrase of our drop, but we'll get into that later. The next thing we're gonna do is add a clap. So go ahead, find a clap that you like. I like this guy. I'm gonna click and drag him at the 17.3 because the clap lands on every half beat. And if you guessed it, we're gonna click on the clap, hold shift, click to the next 0.3, which is 18.3, and do Command D until we filled up. Excuse me, I'm gonna be burping because I'm having soda, or what do you call that? Carbonated drink. Now that we have a clap for every 4 bars, we can move on to the hi-hats, right? So let's open up our cymbals folder here on the right side, and then find a hi-hat that we like. We'll listen to this. I like this guy. This is an open hi-hat, by the way. The difference between an open and closed, by the way, this is open, that's closed. You see how this open one's very washy and open, and this one's very punchy. That's kind of an open one. Let me find another really good closed example. Like that's a ride. That's another thing. That's another symbol. You'll get used to the nomenclature of all of these samples. Yeah, like that's a closed one, as you can see. Look at the difference between these. These are important to know right off the rip. So open hi-hat, it's very soft, rounded, and then a closed hi-hat is very punchy and short. And if you've ever actually looked at a drum set, like open cymbals, like actually have a space between them, and then like closed hi-hats, like they're actually closed. And sometimes when the drummer actually will play it, he'll like hit it and like touch the cymbal to like actually close the tail end. Just like a little bit of music knowledge. So I don't want that one. I'm actually going to go ahead and duplicate this 4 times, this nice hi-hat that I have, and I'm going to highlight all 4 and duplicate it for the entire phrase that we have here. A lot of people in the beginning, they want to do this one at a time. Stop it, stop being silly. Understand that you have the power of duplication and you are a god in your arrangement. So make 4, highlight 4, duplicate all 4 for 4 bars. Speeds everything up. This is how you become fluent in Ableton, okay? The next thing we're gonna do, pick another hi-hat to layer with it. We'll do this guy. And we'll do for you, highlight all 4, duplicate for 4 bars, boom. Let's play it. First drum loop, incredible. The only problem here is that the cymbals are really loud, and you don't want your hi-hats extremely loud, like as loud as your kick and clap, because it's just not natural, it doesn't feel right. So as I play this, I'm going to lower my cymbals group volume slider here. Pay attention. I'm gonna do like -7, that sounds decent. Great. You just created your first drum loop if you followed along and did it all accordingly. All right, let's go ahead and add some final touches. I'm going to go ahead and collapse my browser here on the top left side by clicking this button. By the way, let me turn myself off real quick and hide. These icons up here on the top right actually swap between session and arrangement. Forgot to mention that, but I just pressed the tab key, right? Okay, we're back. So let's do these final touches. We're just gonna be adding locators so that we can easily reference how to write our music and stuff like that. It just helps out a lot. So we're gonna go all the way to the left, and right below the one, we're gonna add a locator, and we're literally just gonna call this intro. And then we're gonna go, let's do this actually. Let's make the grid 1 bar. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. And on that number 5, we're gonna add a locator and we're gonna put a period. Okay, and then we're gonna go 4 more bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the 9th marker, we're gonna type in build. Okay, and then we're gonna go all the way up to the 16th beat marker, and we're going to put a locator and we're gonna put a period. Okay, and the reason that, well, actually, let's not put a period. Let's do pre-drop vocal, PDV. Okay, and the reason that we're doing this is so that we can easily reference that for the first 8 bars is our intro. We are putting a period at the halfway point to tell us that this is the part when we need to start adding variation to the intro to keep people engaged and listening. And then the build starts right here. Right at 8 bars, and then it goes up and it goes up, and we're building tension, and then someone says, drop that shit, fuck you, get punched in the face, and then it drops, okay? And then it drops for 4 bars, okay? And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're gonna add another locator, and we're gonna put the number 2, because this is going to be the second half of your first drop, right? Your second phrase. And then we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 more bars. We're gonna put what? A period. Yep, that's right, because it's the halfway point. And then we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the last locator, we're just gonna type in bridge. Okay, so to really quick recap this, the locators are just little bookmarks to reference how to write music and what to fill in. The drop, the first half of your drop, so from the thing that says drop to number 2, this is 8 bars, right? So you have something dropping for the first 4 bars, and at the halfway point, you want to add a little bit of variation, maybe a new bass, and then your second half of the drop starts at 2, and then at the halfway point, again, new variation, something different, and then the bridge where actually everybody gets to take a breather and calm down from the mosh pit. You can add more locators after the bridge, but you don't necessarily have to do that, because once you fill in all of these spaces here with like the first half of your song, all you have to do is highlight it all. We'll do it with the drums and everything, and just do Command D. And as you can see, I duplicated all of that space with the drums over here, and that's how you finish the last half of your drop, okay? So now that you have your drums set up, your locator set up, all of your groups and tracks and everything, now we have finished our default template. If you wish to add more tracks and label anything and color anything, go ahead, now's your time. We're gonna save this by going to File, Save Live Template As, name it whatever you want. First YouTube template, version 1. Get used to doing that, by the way, putting the letter V and then whatever version of it is, like generation after, so that you just know what age it is really. So that's where it's saved. If you're trying to figure out where your templates are at, it is the last option of your library category within the browser. And then once that's saved, go back to File, Save Live Set as Default Set. And then it might even pop up with Windows saying yes or no. Say yes, so that every time you open up a new instance of Ableton, it is going to load this project file with your drum loop and your beat markers. I can't stress how valuable that is. It's gonna save you a tremendous amount of time. Hey, congratulations on graduating Dubstep Bootcamp with DOOG. This entire video series encompassed everything from orienting yourself to dubstep music production all the way through installing Ableton, navigating Ableton, and setting up your default template. So you now have the platform necessary to start learning music production. You have just leveled up from recruit to student, and now that you're a student, you can head over to the Schoolhouse series where we're going to learn the nature of sound and the fundamentals of sound and the fundamentals of your production tools and understanding how they work in tandem with each other. So thank you for the support, and again, congratulations on completing this series. I'll go ahead and catch you over at the Schoolhouse when you're ready.